recently Joe Manchin surprised everyone by announcing a deal with President Joe Biden that would do some investments in climate change. Now, as I had said in my initial reporting on this, of course you're not going to get anything past Joe Manchin without funding fossil fuels, without, helping out big oil, and of course his own personal investments. And of course, that's exactly what's in that bill. Now, there is investment in solar and wind, and that's good, but it turns out that it's also contingent, that spending, on expanding oil and gas leases on federal lands and waters. So basically what that means is that the more we invest in these technologies that are supposed to help the climate, the more we also have to give to the companies who are destroying the climate. So, yeah, not good. Also, another gift to Manchin and the oil companies is reforms to the permitting process for energy projects. They love this. And it would also clear the way for final approval of the Mountain Valley Pipeline. That's a side deal that Manchin had received, which would carry fracked gas through West Virginia and actually create a ton of emissions. I think it was equal to somewhere around 73 million cars a year. So the bill also mandates that oil and gas lease sales be held before the federal government can even greenlight new solar and wind development. So look, all of that has some of the oil lobbyists saying, yes, this is a fantastic deal. We love this. In fact, one lobbyist told Politico, quote, if you look at the pros and cons, the pros generally outweigh the cons. Now, remember, what we're talking about here is investment in energy that would reduce emissions that are driving catastrophic climate change. And they're looking at that investment in that as a con and saying, well, obviously more leases for us, more spending on us. Well, that's the pro here. More fossil fuels, more carbon, more methane. Yes, but that also means more profit. In fact, there's another quote here that says the Easter eggs that Manchin forced into the bill on leasing, they're a big deal. Barron's also reported on Thursday that ExxonMobil, Chevron, Occidental Petroleum, and Equitrans midstream could be among the bill's leading beneficiaries, given its incentives for carbon capture technology. So that's something that, again, it was a major investment in this. Unfortunately, it's more of a gimmick. It's not really a solution. It's a false solution pushed by oil companies trying to actually stop real efforts to cut emissions. So, I mean, there it is. Yeah, sure, you do have necessary investments in alternative energies that are clean. You also, in its current form, have a doubling down of fossil fuels, which is not good. So that's why you have Senator Bernie Sanders, who took to the floor, and he had spoke out against the giveaways themselves and said, quote, this is from Common Dreams here. While Sanders applauded the Inflation Reduction Act's serious funding for wind, solar batteries, heat pumps, electric vehicles, energy efficient appliances, and low-income communities that have borne the brunt of climate change, he raised concerns with the billions of dollars in new tax breaks and subsidies that the oil and gas industry will receive under the new measure. And in his floor speech, he basically went through the bill piece by piece. It's like 35 minutes long of him going through this, but he comes away with a couple of these conclusions. Let's take a look.
In my view, if we are going to make our planet healthy and habitable for future generations, we cannot provide billions of dollars in new tax breaks to the very same fossil fuel companies that are currently destroying the planet. Think about it. At a time when the scientists all over the world tell us we've got to break our dependence on fossil fuel, this legislation provides billions in new tax breaks to fossil fuel companies. In my view, instead of giving them more tax breaks, we should end all of the massive corporate welfare that the fossil fuel industry already enjoys.
All right. So now he also points out how ExxonMobil loves it. He said that the CEO of ExxonMobil, a company that has done as much as any entity to destroy this planet, if he's pleased with this bill, then I think all of us should have some very deep concerns about what is in this legislation. He points out that the bill will offer the fossil fuel industry up to 700 million acres of public lands and waters to do oil and gas drilling over the next decade, far more than they could ever use, and said, we have to do everything. Okay, he already said that quote. I showed you that. But now he also, in the beginning, also criticized some of the other provisions that weren't climate related. And that was the prescription drug provisions in the bill, saying that they are weak, complex, not comprehensive, and will take too long to go into effect. So, look, Bernie Sanders, he's right. This is full of things that are going to enrich the donors. That's going to enrich Manchin himself. But the issue here is, and I think it's great that, progressives were speaking out against this, because there is a major problem with these bills, right? Because they are all full of corporate giveaways, and they all continue to double down on fossil fuels. Well, yes, even though there is investment here in clean energy, my issue here is, I get it. I criticize this bill as well, and I don't like the fawning coverage that the mainstream media gives. But at the same time, when I talked about this before, I said that this is probably the best that we could hope for. Now, I'm gonna again say that that's true. Now, in saying that, I'm also saying that this is so incredibly bleak. The fact that this is the best that we can hope for, it's terrible. It's terrible. It's bleak, but unfortunately, it's true. This bill doesn't go near far enough to mitigate the worst of climate change. But we have a system now where we are stuck with these kinds of people. We have a system that is captured completely by corporations and special interests. And so in that case, again, we can talk about how we want to do more and we should do more and we have to do more, honestly. But in this case, there's nothing else that we can do. Any bill that goes through Congress, and specifically the Senate, is going to be full of corporate welfare. It is going to be full of this kind of stuff. And that's the only way that things are going to happen. Now, I'm not saying this so that we could lose hope, and I'm not saying this to be discouraging, even though it definitely feels like it, because I feel discouraged. But I say that because we have to know what to do. Honestly, we cannot count on Congress to do what needs to be done. What we have to do is find a way to sidestep Congress and the courts, because the Congress is not going to work on our behalf. They're too mired in fossil fuel interests. And honestly, I don't think we can wait for the older generation to die off and be replaced. And I'm talking about the older politicians, right? The people in Congress that are 80, 90 years old and that are saying, screw the climate, I'm not going to be alive anyway to deal with it. Because younger people, even younger Republicans, are starting to get very concerned about hey, maybe we should do something about climate change, guys. You know what I'm saying? Because this looks pretty bad. This looks real bad, actually. Maybe we should do something. Yeah, you guys can figure it out. I'll be dead. And by the way, I'll be dead sitting in a pile of money. Or before I die, I'm going to enjoy tons of money. We don't have the time for that. We don't have the time to wait for the fossils to die off. All right? We've got to figure out a way to sidestep the power structures that are blocking any kind of progress here. And I think, other than trying to remove corporate politicians, which again is a super long process, no, we actually have to remove the corrupting influence of money in politics. I think we have to really try at amending the Constitution. We've got to undo Citizens United. We've got to undo McCutcheon. I think we've got to undo all these decisions that declared money to be speech and corporations to be people. We've got to do that. And it's got to happen soon. It's got to happen now. We got to push for that. Not only that, but there needs to be massive climate protests. There's got to be something to get the attention. There's got to be something to, again, get around the people that are blocking progress for the sake of money. And I may not have all the ideas, but I'm certainly open to them. Because again, we do not have the time to waste on bills that double down. Yes, will this be, a good investment in renewable energy? Yeah, sure. But what you're doing to help renewable energy, you're also doubling down on the very things that we don't need to do more of. And so you're negating the good that we're doing by doubling down on bad. And again, we just don't have the time. And so, yes, we've got to at least try. I think the best hope that we have is to get the corrupting money out of politics, and really start pushing for a constitutional amendment. Other than that, again, direct action, organizing your communities, organizing your workplaces, getting involved in direct action, protest. And again, I don't have all the ideas, but we got to get together and we got to get these ideas and we got to act on them.